For this episode, I'm going to stray from the usual format. Instead of tackling a hard issue, I'm going to answer a question that a bunch of viewers have been asking me. Who are these people behind me, and what are they doing on my wall? The pictures behind me are the topic for this episode of Progressive Solutions. Before getting started, if you enjoyed this video, then hit that thumbs up button below, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell so that you'll be notified of future videos when they come out, and help spread the word. There are a lot of progressive solutions. The eagle-eyed among you who have seen some of my videos already will notice that there are a couple of new people on the top row. I'll get to them as soon as I go through the 6 that have been here from the start. And I'll start with the most recognized picture on the wall, William Shakespeare. I've been an actor since I was 6 years old. I've done a lot of Shakespeare plays, and I've directed Shakespeare as well. Shakespeare's plays are so rich, so full that, well, it's impossible to do a perfect production. Just the challenge enough is exhilarating. He's here on my wall to continue to challenge me as I sort through the issues. Next up, 2 spots over to another pretty well-recognized picture, Alexander Hamilton. Hamilton's been a personal hero of mine for about 20 years. He has his flaws, plenty of them, but just look at what he accomplished. He rose from being a bastard and de facto orphan on an isolated Caribbean island to impressing so many people that they raised money to send him to New York. Well, actually, they sent him to New Jersey, but that didn't work out, so he wound up in New York. Having fallen in with a bad crowd, the Sons of Liberty, when the Revolution broke out, he achieved so much coming out of nowhere that he attracted the attention of George Washington and ended up being one of Washington's top aides. He pretty much single-handedly saved the Revolution when there was a big movement led by Horatio Gates to replace Washington as commander-in-chief with Gates. Hamilton stopped that effort. After the war ended, he became a top-flight lawyer, but he noticed pretty quickly that the new Confederation of States was headed for disaster, so he agitated for a constitutional convention, even helping drag Washington out of retirement to preside over it. When the new Constitution was written, even though the final version didn't bear a whole lot of resemblance to the plan he proposed, he pushed hard for ratification. The New York State Convention started out with most delegates against it, but he brought them around. Then, having taught himself high finance, he took a position as the nation's first Secretary of the Treasury. In that position, he turned a nearly bankrupt nation with a whole lot of nearly bankrupt states into a functioning and eventually wealthy society. If Washington was the father of our country, Hamilton was at least our elder brother, guiding us brilliantly all along the way. My next picture is the one in between these two guys, somebody very few people will recognize from the picture, but you might know the name, James Watt. When I was growing up, I was taught that Watt invented the steam engine and ushered in the Industrial Revolution. Wrong. Steam engine was around long before Watt was born. As the late 18th century son of a Scottish tinker, Watt studied to be a tinker as well. He did a lot of apprenticeships, but he didn't get enough apprenticeship time to join the guild. But he did get hired by the University of Glasgow, which allowed him to pursue his profession. 50 years earlier, Thomas Newcomen had created a version of the steam engine that was used to pump water out of coal mines. As the steam engine just needed 2 things, water to make steam and coal, which you could burn to heat the water to turn it into steam, the Newcomen engine did a pretty good job. The University of Glasgow had a model version of the Newcomen engine, but like most machinery occasionally does, it broke down. So they brought it to Watt and asked him to fix it. He had never seen such a machine before, but when he took a good look at it, he wondered why in 50 years nobody had improved it, because it was really inefficient. Watt made 4 major improvements that turned the steam engine into something with really just one minor use, into a tool that could be used across the spectrum of industry. And yeah, he did kick the Industrial Revolution into high gear. His improvements to the steam engine were world-changing. Watt's insight and inventiveness, along with the enormous impact he made on society, are why he's on my wall. Okay, those are the white men. Now let's turn to the other pictures on the wall, starting with the other man. His name is Manza Musa. Musa was an early 14th century leader. Mansa is a title, which means leader or sultan or conqueror, something along those lines. He led the Malian Empire, which was a Muslim empire in Western Africa. He may also have been the richest person in all of human history. Under his leadership, he and the Malians not only controlled a whole lot of gold, but also built an enormous intercontinental salt trade. How important is salt? Well, the word salary comes from the Latin for salt, and a lot of ancient Roman soldiers were actually paid in that valuable commodity. Musa's wealth is probably incalculable, but one story gives a good idea of just how wealthy he was. In 1324, he left on a Hajj, a pilgrimage to Mecca that all Muslims are supposed to make once in their life if they're able. He took with him an entourage of about 60,000 people, and they were loaded down with gold. On his way through Egypt, he and his entourage spent a whole lot of gold. In fact, he spent so much gold that metal was devalued in Egypt and the surrounding areas and consequently destroyed the economy there. On his way back, seeing what he had done, he borrowed back a lot of gold, which restored the economy of the region. Yes, one person was able to destroy and then restore the economy of an entire region. That's how wealthy he was. He's here as a constant reminder that in my study of history and issues, I need to look at places like Africa. The continent has a fascinating and rich history, and most of us don't know anything about it, myself included. Next up is the first of two women I originally included on my wall. This is a statue in Westminster. It's entitled Boudicca and Her Daughters. Boudicca lived in the 1st century CE as queen of the Iceni tribe in what is now Norfolk, England and the surrounding area. When the Romans invaded, Boudicca's husband, who was the king at the time, struck deals with the conquerors, deals that the Romans had very little intention of honoring, at least not for long. When her husband died, Boudicca was beaten and her daughters were raped in front of her. Naturally, this pissed her off, so she rallied not only her own people, but the surrounding tribes as well, and then set out to rid herself of this menace. She attacked and destroyed 3 Roman cities, including the city of Londinium, which is now known as London. Eventually, the Roman legions managed to meet her out on an open field, and they defeated and destroyed her army, and she either died during the battle or shortly thereafter. But during her time, she struck terror in the hearts of the greatest conquering force the world had known to that point. In fact, back in Rome, the Emperor Nero almost gave the order for the Romans to pull out of Britain. That's how much damage she did. Boudicca is here as proof that women have long been able to lead and lead effectively, even as military commanders. Now we move to the one picture on my bottom row, right here. This is Emmi Noter. Noter was born in Germany in the late 19th century. Her father was a mathematician, so she planned to teach French and English, because that's what women did back then. But she discovered a passion for mathematics, a subject women weren't generally even allowed to study. She managed to get permission to audit classes, and eventually she even earned a PhD in math, after women were finally allowed to study the subject. Noter's work in fields from general relativity to abstract algebra made her a leading mathematician of the early 1930s. In 1933, being Jewish, she fled the Nazi regime and came to America, where she taught at Bryn Mawr for a couple of years before her sudden death. But her work, in particular the theorem that bears her name, is responsible for tremendous progress in many fields over the last century. A lot of people still believe that women aren't very good at math. She's proof that they're wrong. Now we get to the 2 new pictures. The first one is right up here. Her name is Mary Wollstonecraft. Wollstonecraft was a late 18th century English author, philosopher, and fighter for women's rights. She had what might be described as an eventful life, including getting caught up in the French Revolution. This is probably why a lot of 19th century critiques of her work focused on the scandals surrounding her life rather than on the work she did and the things she wrote. But her writings influenced not only the literary style of Jane Austen, but also the political activism of 19th century women's rights leaders like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Margaret Fuller. One more interesting detail: Wollstonecraft died of complications of giving birth to her second daughter. That little girl also grew up to be an author and pretty well known. Mary Shelley. Finally, the last picture, Virginia Hall. Interestingly, Hall is the only person on this wall who was born in the United States. In 1933, while on a hunting trip, she tripped and she accidentally shot herself in the foot. Her leg ended up having to be amputated below the knee, and she was given a wooden prosthetic, which she named Cuthbert. Because she did. Despite having studied across Europe and working for the United States embassies in Poland and Turkey, when she tried to enter the Foreign Service, she was refused because they only hired people who were able-bodied. So when World War II broke out, she got herself hired by the British Special Operations Executive, and she was sent into France. That's right, Virginia Hall was a spy, and a damn good one at that. During her time working for the British, she organized spy networks, rescued prisoners, and was generally a pain in the Nazi ass. At one point in 1942, she arranged and conducted the escape of a dozen spies who had been captured by Vichy French forces. Oh, by the way, the Gestapo knew all about her. Well, they knew that a woman with a wooden leg was spying on her. They even called her the Limping Lady. But they never caught her. Eventually, the American OSS, a precursor to the CIA, hired her and sent her back into France in 1944, where she supplied and trained French resistance groups known as the Maquis. Yeah, that's where the Star Trek Voyager writers got that name. The various Maquis groups were highly resistant to taking orders or directions from a woman, but she persevered, or persisted, and she won their support. Hall was the only female civilian to be awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for work during World War II. After the war, she was one of the first women hired by the CIA, and she worked on and off there for several years. And that's the current list. Is there anybody else you feel should be up here? I do have space for some more pictures. Let me know in the comments below. And thanks for watching. Stay progressive.